us coffee, tea, and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, take our leave and go. At a fair in the sunlit town, her hair was blonde and her dress was brown. She made a whaler man come around. This will be the second island of 3 to land on for this island hopping adventure. I've just departed from an anomalous tiny island, and I'm sailing past the familiar sad islands out the mouth of the creek and on to my destination, a much larger, longer island, about a half-mile across the creek channel. Compared to Kentucky Lake, I've always found Barkley to be a little bit mysterious. It's much shallower and a little bit muddier. Kind of hesitated to shorten sail before making the crossing of about a half mile out to this island. And when I say shorten sail, I mean typically people mean reefing the main or perhaps furling the jib if you have a roller furling jib. But to me also just dousing the jib or furling the mizzen completely is also a form of shortening sail. About halfway across, it was kind of no wind, and then all of a sudden it hit. And I could tell by the state of the water further out, it looked like it was blowing pretty good, but sometimes the sea just lingers, after the wind has stopped. But yeah, eventually the wind hit and it was pretty stiff, and so just the main was the perfect amount of sail to have up, I think. There's a huge flock of geese and a huge flock of pelicans just to the south here, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't fly away. They really weren't that scared of me. They just kind of waddled down the island a few hundred yards just to give me some space. So they're going to give me space and I will give them space, and we'll get along just fine. archaeology of this place is really pretty interesting. I found a huge pile of old brick from European settlement at some time or another. Looked pretty old to me. The entire island is just covered in lithics of all different types, mostly just flakes, you know, flint flakes or other mineral flakes that have been worked. But I'm seeing minerals that I normally haven't noticed out here. I've walked down to the south side of the island and it is just beautiful down here on the end. Right here behind me would be an amazing spot to camp. Actually, I may come back here and camp someday. And I'm looking at a blank, narrow land bridge that goes out to a wider, higher section. There's a blue heron looking at me suspiciously. It flew away, squawking, then it came back squawking and perched on a tree. So maybe this guy's just cool and he's just gonna sit there. Not trying to upset the birds, but the geese definitely had a fit, but the pelicans did not care. This is just cool, this little land bridge. And I thought it was rock at first, until I looked down, I realized it's all tiny shells that I'm walking on. I spent a couple of hours exploring Big Pelican Island, and I was a little bit sad to leave. It's really a unique place, actually. It's filled with natural beauty and rich archaeology, and it's also a place where you can feel truly alone. And I don't mean that in a negative way. In our modern world, truly solitary places are not as common as they once were. Surrounded by the muddy waters of the Cumberland on this island, you can feel true solitude, knowing that it's just you and the birds for miles around. This is the nicest feather I've found out here. Must be either a pelican or an egret. I'm not really sure which. I guess it could be a seagull as well. I've seen every type of bird. Big flock of pelicans, big flock of geese, crows, blackbirds, blue heron, egret, just about everything. I was a little bit sad to leave, but excited to revisit my old stomping grounds, the Sad Islands. The Sad Islands are familiar to me, but it's been maybe a couple of years since I've last been there, and actually I think I have an old video taking place at the Sad Islands. The wind has died down a little bit, so I decided to set the main and the jib, but leave the mizzen furled. And actually the boat sails just fine this way. You just have to make sure to trim your sails right.